I am Alicia, 32 years old, and until recently I was a dedicated marketing specialist at TechVision Industries. For 5 years, I poured my heart and soul into that company, believing I was valued. Then came that fateful performance review, where HR Director Rebecca laughed and said those words, "I will never forget. You are easily replaceable." The shock froze me in place, but what they did not know was how calculated my response would be. They certainly were not laughing when they finally opened the attachment to my resignation letter. Before I dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if you want more stories about standing up for yourself in toxic workplaces. My journey to TechVision Industries began with my education in marketing and business administration at Northwestern University. I graduated with honors, full of ambition and ready to make my mark on the world. The job market was competitive, but I was determined to land a position that would challenge me and allow me to grow professionally. After 3 months of interviews and rejections, I finally received the call that changed everything. TechVision Industries, a mid-sized tech company specializing in customer relationship management software, wanted me to join their marketing team. I still remember jumping up and down in my tiny apartment, calling my parents with the news. This was my dream job at a company with a stellar reputation for innovation and employee satisfaction. My first day at TechVision was everything I had hoped for. The office was modern and bright, with open spaces designed to foster collaboration. My manager David greeted me warmly and introduced me to the team of 12 other marketing professionals I would be working with. Everyone seemed genuinely happy to be there, which only confirmed I had made the right choice. During my first year, I focused on learning everything I could about the company and our products. I stayed late, volunteered for additional projects, and constantly sought feedback to improve my performance. David noticed my dedication and began assigning me more responsibility. By the end of that first year, I had already led 2 successful email marketing campaigns that increased customer engagement by 23%. My second year brought even more opportunities. I was tasked with revamping the company blog, which had been neglected for months. I developed a content calendar, recruited writers from different departments, and personally edited every post before publication. Within 6 months, our blog traffic had tripled, and we were generating significant leads through content marketing for the first time in company history. David was thrilled with the results and nominated me for the company's annual Innovation Award. Though I did not win, being nominated as a relatively new employee was an honor that boosted my confidence and reputation within the company. Colleagues from other departments began seeking my input on their marketing materials, and executives knew me by name. By my third year, TechVision was growing rapidly. We had secured several major clients, including 2 Fortune 500 companies, and our staff had nearly doubled. David was promoted to Director of Marketing, and he selected me to lead the digital marketing team, consisting of 5 employees. This promotion came with a generous salary increase and a private office, which seemed like validation of my hard work and dedication. My team quickly became known for delivering results. We launched a social media campaign that went viral within our industry, generating over 1 million impressions and leading directly to 42 new client acquisitions. The CEO personally sent me an email congratulating me on the campaign's success, which I printed and framed on my office wall. Life at TechVision was good. I formed close friendships with several colleagues, particularly with Melissa from the product development team and James from sales. We often had lunch together and occasionally met for drinks after work. They became my support system, celebrating my successes and providing encouragement during challenging projects. However, the beginning of my 4th year marked a significant shift in the company's trajectory. TechVision was acquired by a larger tech conglomerate, Global Tech Solutions. Initially, the acquisition was presented as an opportunity for growth and expansion. The CEO assured us that our company culture would remain intact and that no major changes were planned for the immediate future. For the first few months, those promises seemed to hold true. Then gradually things began to change. David, my original boss and mentor, was reassigned to a subsidiary company across the country. Several other longtime executives were either reassigned or let go. New management was brought in, including a new CEO, Marcus, and a new HR director, Rebecca. The office atmosphere transformed subtly at first. The casual Friday policy was eliminated. The open door policy that executives had maintained was replaced with formal meeting requests. Team building events and company lunches became less frequent and eventually stopped altogether. I tried to adapt to the new environment, believing that if I continued to perform at a high level, I would maintain my position and influence within the company. I made efforts to connect with Marcus and other new executives, volunteering for high visibility projects and continuing to deliver exceptional results. When my annual review came around, I received positive feedback and another raise, though smaller than previous years. The new management acknowledged my contributions, but emphasized the need for alignment with the new company vision. I took this as a sign that I needed to better understand and incorporate their goals into my work. I spent the next several months studying global tech's marketing strategies and attempting to integrate their approach with what had worked so well for us at TechVision. It was challenging to blend the two methodologies, but I was committed to making it work. I believed that my adaptability and willingness to embrace change would be recognized and appreciated. What I did not realize then was that the changes in leadership and company culture were just the beginning. The true test of my resilience and self-worth was yet to come, as the new management team had plans that would fundamentally alter my career trajectory and force me to make one of the most difficult decisions of my professional life. The first clear sign that things were truly changing came 6 months after the acquisition, when Rebecca, the new HR director, called an all-staff meeting to discuss organizational realignment. Rebecca was a tall, imposing woman with sharp features and an even sharper tone. She always wore designer suits and spoke with an air of authority that bordered on condescension. During that meeting, Rebecca introduced a new performance evaluation system that would rank employees against one another. She emphasized that this system would identify top performers and areas of redundancy. The term redundancy hung in the air like a threat. I glanced around at my colleagues, noting their uncomfortable expressions. James caught my eye and raised an eyebrow. We both knew what this meant: competitive culture and potential layoffs. The next week, I presented a comprehensive digital marketing strategy for the upcoming quarter during our department meeting. I had spent weeks researching industry trends and analyzing our past performance data to develop a plan that I believed would significantly increase our market reach. As I concluded my presentation, I looked expectantly at our new marketing director, Gregory, who had replaced David. Gregory barely looked up from his phone as he said, "Thanks, Alicia. Interesting ideas. We will take them under advisement." He then moved on to the next agenda item without discussion or feedback. I sat down feeling deflated and confused. 3 days later, I was shocked to see several of my proposed strategies included in a company-wide email from Gregory presented as his own initiatives. When I privately approached him about it, he dismissively said, "These are standard marketing practices. No one owns these ideas." I left his office, feeling invisible and undervalued for the first time in my career at TechVision. The exclusion continued in subtle ways. I noticed I was no longer being copied on certain email threads relevant to my department. Meetings were scheduled during my lunch break or after hours without checking my availability. When I did attend meetings, my input was often interrupted or overlooked, only to be praised when repeated by someone else, particularly Gregory or one of his new hires. One Tuesday morning, I arrived early to prepare for a client presentation and overheard a conversation from the conference room. The door was slightly ajar, and I recognized Rebecca's distinctive voice. "We need to prioritize employees who align with Global Tech's culture," she was saying. "Some of the original TechVision staff are stuck in old patterns. They are expendable if they cannot adapt." My heart raced as I realized she might be talking about me and other long-term employees. I quickly moved away before being noticed, but the word expendable echoed in my mind throughout the day. The following month brought a critical moment that should have been a triumph. Our second largest client, NextGen Solutions, was considering terminating their contract due to concerns about the company transition. They had been exclusively working with me since they came on board 3 years earlier, and they requested a meeting to discuss their concerns. Gregory initially planned to handle the meeting himself, despite having never worked with this client. When the client specifically requested my presence, he reluctantly included me, but instructed me to let him do the talking. During the meeting, it became clear that the client had little confidence in Gregory, who kept referring to them by the wrong company name and was unfamiliar with their specific needs. When they directly asked me a question about their marketing analytics dashboard, a feature I had helped develop for them, Gregory attempted to intercept, but was politely shut down by the client. I salvaged the meeting by addressing their concerns, directly demonstrating the new features we had developed, and assuring them of continuity in their service, despite the company changes. By the end of the meeting, they had not only decided to stay, but had also expanded their contract to include our new analytics package. Back at the office, I expected acknowledgement for saving a $500,000 annual contract. Instead, Gregory simply said, "Good thing I brought you along," before taking the contract renewal to Marcus's office himself. Later that day, a company-wide email praised Gregory for his exceptional client relationship management and sales acumen in retaining NextGen Solutions. That night, I called my best friend Taylor and vented my frustrations for over an hour. "I do not know how much longer I can take this," I admitted. "It is like they are systematically erasing my contributions." "Have you considered looking for another job?" Taylor asked gently. "I have 5 years invested in this company," I responded. "I helped build it into what it is today. It feels wrong to just walk away." But Taylor's question planted a seed in my mind. Perhaps it was time to at least explore my options. The next clear red flag came when Gregory hired Amber, a recent marketing graduate with only 1 year of experience, and assigned her to work directly under him. Despite her junior status, Amber was invited to executive meetings that I was excluded from. She was given a corner desk with a window view, while more senior team members worked in cubicles. Most tellingly, she frequently mentioned her father's golf games with Marcus, our CEO. My team members noticed the preferential treatment too. Madison, one of my direct reports, stopped by my office after witnessing Amber take credit for a social media strategy Madison had developed. "How is she getting away with this?" Madison asked, clearly upset. "Office politics," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Just keep documenting your work. Quality speaks for itself." Taking my own advice, I began meticulously documenting all my projects, contributions, and successes. I created a private folder on my personal cloud drive where I saved emails praising my work, screenshots of positive client feedback, and detailed notes about my role in various projects. I did not know exactly why I was doing this, but some instinct told me it might be important later. After another month of similar treatment, I decided to address my concerns directly with my supervisor. I scheduled a meeting with Gregory, prepared a list of specific instances where I felt my contributions had been overlooked, and practiced a professional, non-accusatory tone. Gregory kept me waiting for 30 minutes before the meeting, then checked his watch repeatedly as I spoke. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed dramatically. "Alicia, I think you are being oversensitive," he said. "This is business, not a friendship circle. Global tech operates differently than the old tech vision. Perhaps you are struggling with the transition more than you realize." He suggested that I focus more on adapting and less on who gets credit, effectively dismissing all my concerns. I left his office feeling gaslighted and diminished. Later that week, I met James for coffee during our break. He had been experiencing similar treatment in the sales department. "They brought in 3 new sales guys from Global Tech's headquarters," he told me. "They are getting all the premium leads while the rest of us are fighting for scraps." When I raised the issue with the new sales director, he hinted that I should be grateful to still have a job. "Do you think they are trying to push us out?" I asked. James shrugged. "Maybe not actively, but they would not mind if we left. Less severance to pay that way." The final straw came when Rebecca sent a company-wide email announcing the annual performance reviews would begin the following week. Typically, these reviews were conducted by direct supervisors, but the email specified that this year, an HR representative would also be present to ensure alignment with global tech's performance standards. A knot formed in my stomach as I read the email. Something about the phrasing felt ominous, like these were not just reviews, but evaluations determining who would stay and who would go. Despite my growing anxiety, I spent the weekend preparing a comprehensive portfolio showcasing my achievements from the past year, determined to demonstrate my undeniable value to the company. Little did I know that this performance review would become the pivotal moment that would change everything, pushing me past my breaking point and leading to a decision I never thought I would make. The morning of my performance review arrived with a sense of foreboding I could not shake. I had spent hours preparing a portfolio that documented my accomplishments over the past year, the successful next-gen contract renewal, a product launch campaign that generated over $250,000 in new revenue, and a social media strategy that increased our engagement rates by 38%. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing a professional navy blue suit that projected confidence. I arrived at the office 30 minutes early to review my notes one final time and calm my nerves with a cup of chamomile tea. At precisely 10 o'clock, I walked to the conference room, where the review was scheduled, portfolio tucked under my arm and shoulders squared. When I entered, I was surprised to see not just Gregory but Rebecca from HR already seated at the table. Rebecca wore her signature stern expression, her laptop open in front of her. Gregory looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his pen and avoiding eye contact. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, despite the unexpected presence of the HR director at what should have been a manager-only review. "Morning, Alicia. Take a seat," Rebecca replied, without looking up from her computer. I sat down across from them and placed my portfolio on the table. "I have prepared a summary of my key achievements from this past year that I thought might be helpful for our discussion." Gregory glanced at the portfolio but made no move to open it. "We have your file here, but thanks," he said, gesturing to a thin folder in front of Rebecca. The review began with Gregory going through a standard list of performance criteria, rating me as meets expectations in most categories. This already felt like a downgrade from my previous reviews, where I had consistently received exceeds expectations ratings, but I remained silent, waiting for an opportunity to present my documentation. "In terms of your marketing campaign work, you have maintained adequate performance levels," Gregory said, his voice flat. "The social media campaigns were satisfactory, though we would like to see more innovative approaches moving forward." I could not believe what I was hearing. The social media campaign he referenced had been praised by clients and even featured in a marketing industry blog as an example of excellence in B2B engagement. Actually, I began opening my portfolio to the relevant page. The Q3 social media campaign exceeded all KPIs by at least 20%. We saw unprecedented engagement rates and directly attributed 15 new client acquisitions to that campaign alone. Before Gregory could respond, Rebecca interjected. "Alicia, the metrics you are referencing were achieved by a team, not just you individually. And frankly, these results are in line with industry standards, nothing exceptional." I blinked, momentarily stunned by her dismissal. I led that campaign personally, created the strategy, and monitored its execution. The team implemented my directives, but the concept and direction came from me. Rebecca's lips curved into what might have been a smile, but felt more like a sneer. "That is your perception. Gregory has indicated that he provided significant guidance on that project." I turned to Gregory, who suddenly seemed fascinated by a spot on the conference table. He had provided exactly zero input on that campaign. In fact, he had been on vacation for 2 weeks during its development. The review continued in this vein, with Rebecca systematically undermining each accomplishment I presented. When I mentioned the next-gen contract renewal, she suggested it was merely relationship maintenance rather than actual sales skill. When I pointed out the product launch campaign's success, she attributed it to the quality of the product rather than the marketing strategy. After 30 minutes of this treatment, I felt my confidence eroding, despite knowing the truth of my contributions. Then came the moment that would change everything. Looking ahead, Rebecca said, closing her laptop with a definitive click, "We need to discuss your role within our evolving organization structure." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "Global tech has a different approach to marketing than what you might be accustomed to. We find that fresh perspectives often yield better results than, let us say, entrenched methodologies." "My methodologies have consistently yielded exceptional results," I countered, struggling to keep my voice level. Rebecca laughed, a short, dismissive sound that made my skin crawl. "Alicia, let us be honest here. In a company of this size, with the resources we have available, you are easily replaceable. There are dozens of marketing specialists with your qualifications who would jump at the opportunity to work here." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Easily replaceable," I repeated, the words burning in my throat. "It is just business reality," Rebecca continued, apparently oblivious to, or perhaps enjoying my distress. "No one is indispensable. We could have a new marketing specialist at your desk within a week, probably at a lower salary point given the current job market." I looked to Gregory, expecting him to defend me, or at least moderate Rebecca's brutal assessment. He remained silent, examining his cuticles as if they contained the secrets of the universe. My hands were shaking now, but I clasped them tightly in my lap. If that is how the company views 5 years of dedicated service and consistent results, then I think we have fundamentally different values. Rebecca's eyebrows arched. "That sounds dangerously like an attitude problem, Alicia. Perhaps we should consider a performance improvement plan to address these concerns." A performance improvement plan, essentially the corporate version of probation, often the first step toward termination. The suggestion was so outrageous given my track record that I almost laughed. "Based on what performance issues exactly?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. "Your resistance to the new direction, for one," Rebecca replied smoothly. "Your apparent difficulty accepting feedback, for another." Gregory finally spoke up, though his contribution hardly helped. "It is not that your work is bad, Alicia. It is just that we need someone more aligned with where we are headed." "And where is that?" I asked. "Because from where I am sitting, it looks like you are headed toward losing your top performers and institutional knowledge." Rebecca's face hardened. "That is exactly the kind of insubordination I am talking about. Perhaps we should continue this discussion when you are in a more professional mindset." The meeting ended abruptly with Rebecca closing her folder and standing up. "We will email you the performance improvement plan by the end of the week. I suggest you take it seriously." I sat frozen in place as they left the conference room, my carefully prepared portfolio untouched on the table. My chest felt tight, and my vision blurred at the edges. 5 years of dedication dismissed as easily disposable. 5 years of building my career at this company, only to be told I was easily replaceable with a laugh. I gathered my materials with trembling hands and walked back to my desk, feeling the eyes of colleagues on me as I passed. Madison gave me a questioning look, but I could not bring myself to speak. I sat at my computer staring blankly at the screen, the words "easily replaceable" echoing in my mind like a cruel taunt. In that moment, something broke inside me, but something else, something stronger, began to form in its place. They thought I was easily replaceable. Perhaps it was time to put that theory to the test. The women's bathroom became my sanctuary after the performance review. I locked myself in a stall, leaned against the cool metal door, and focused on breathing deeply to prevent the threatening tears. I would not cry at work. I would not give them that satisfaction. As I stood there, trying to regain my composure, memories of my time at TechVision flashed through my mind like a montage, staying until midnight to finish the Anderson proposal, missing my cousin's wedding to handle a marketing emergency, during a product launch, working through a severe flu because we were understaffed during a critical campaign. All those sacrifices, All that dedication dismissed with a callous laugh and the words easily replaceable. After washing my face with cold water and reapplying my lipstick, I returned to my desk with a deliberately neutral expression. Colleagues who passed by with curious glances received nothing but a polite smile. Madison stopped by to ask how the review went, and I gave her a vague "we can talk about it later" response. I could not trust myself to discuss it without letting my emotions show. The rest of the workday passed in a fog. I went through the motions responding to emails and attending a team meeting where I said little. By 5 o'clock, most of the staff had left, but I remained at my desk, unable to muster the energy to pack up and go home. The office grew quiet around me as the cleaning staff began their rounds vacuuming and emptying trash bins. It was nearly 7 when I finally left, driving home on autopilot through the light evening traffic. My apartment felt especially empty that night. I changed into sweatpants and an old university t-shirt, heated up leftover pasta, and sat on my couch staring at a television show. I was not really watching. Sleep evaded me that night. I tossed and turned, replaying the performance review in my mind, thinking of all the things I should have said. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely and opened my laptop. Almost without conscious decision, I found myself navigating to job search websites, scanning listings for marketing positions. By dawn, I had updated my resume and sent it to 3 recruiters. It was a small act of defiance, but it gave me a sense of taking back some control. I finally dozed off as sunlight began streaming through my blinds, waking just an hour later to my alarm with gritty eyes and a pounding headache. I called in sick that day, something I had done only twice in 5 years at TechVision. The receptionist who took my call seemed surprised, but wished me a speedy recovery. I spent the morning in bed, alternating between fitful sleep and anxious rumination. Around noon, I called my best friend Taylor, who answered on the second ring. "Hey, are not you supposed to be terrorizing the marketing world right now?" she asked cheerfully. I called in sick. I replied, my voice hoarse from unshed tears. Her tone immediately changed. "What is wrong? Are you actually sick?" "Not physically." I proceeded to tell her everything about the performance review, Rebecca's cruel dismissal of my worth, and Gregory's spineless silence. "Those absolute jerks," Taylor exclaimed when I finished. "How dare they treat you like that after everything you have done for that company?" "They said I am easily replaceable," I repeated, still struggling to process the words. 5 years of my life, and that is all I am worth to them. "You know that is complete garbage, right?" Taylor said firmly. "Your work is exceptional. Everyone in the industry knows it. Heck, I've heard my own marketing department talk about trying to poach you." Taylor worked for Horizon Digital, one of our competitors. Her words sparked something in me, the first glimmer of recognition that perhaps my value was greater than TechVision's assessment. "Do you really think other companies would be interested in me?" I asked hesitantly. "Are you kidding? With your portfolio and track record, you would have offers within days." That conversation marked the beginning of my transition from grief to anger and finally to determination. After hanging up with Taylor, I spent the rest of the day researching job opportunities, industry salary standards, and most importantly, my legal rights as an employee. What I discovered was illuminating. My salary, which I had always assumed was competitive, was actually well below market rate for someone with my experience and success record. The performance improvement plan that Rebecca had threatened was, according to several legal forums, often used as a paper trail to justify termination rather than an actual tool for improvement. Most significantly, I discovered that some of Global Tech's new policies, particularly regarding overtime compensation and credit for intellectual property, potentially violated labor laws. I had been working under these conditions without question, assuming they were standard industry practices. As evening approached, I made myself a strong cup of coffee and opened my personal cloud drive where I had been documenting my work. What had started as a defensive measure now became the foundation of something more strategic. I created a spreadsheet to calculate the exact financial impact of my marketing campaigns over the past 2 years. Using conservative metrics, I estimated that my work had directly generated approximately $3.7 million in revenue. My current salary represented less than 2% of that value. Next, I searched through my archived emails for evidence of my contributions. I found dozens of messages from clients praising my work, internal communications, where executives acknowledged the success of my campaigns, and even an email from Marcus himself, from just 3 months ago, describing my product launch strategy as brilliant and exactly what the company needs. The most revealing discovery came when I searched for emails about the next-gen contract renewal. In a message to the board of directors that had accidentally been copied to the marketing team distribution list, Gregory had written, "Thanks to Alicia's relationship with the client and quick thinking during the meeting, we secured not just a renewal, but an expansion of services. Her institutional knowledge proved invaluable in this case." This directly contradicted his silence during the performance review when Rebecca dismissed my role in the renewal. By midnight, fueled by coffee and righteous indignation, I had compiled an extensive dossier of my contributions, complete with financial analysis, testimonials, and evidence of my value to the company. The document ran to 27 pages, each one filled with incontrovertible proof of my worth. As I reviewed what I had assembled, a plan began to form in my mind. A plan that would force TechVision to acknowledge exactly what they were losing when they called me easily replaceable. A plan that would allow me to exit with dignity while making sure they felt the impact of my departure. The next morning, I called a lawyer friend, Charlotte, and described my situation without naming the company. After listening patiently, she offered some advice. "What you are describing borders on a hostile work environment, especially with the systematic undermining of your work and exclusion from meetings relevant to your position," she said. "If you wanted to pursue legal action, you might have a case, though these cases are often difficult and draining." "I am not interested in suing them," I replied. "I just want to leave on my terms and make sure they understand what they are losing." "In that case," Charlotte said, "make sure everything you take with you is either publicly available information or personal work documents that you have a right to. Do not take proprietary company information or anything that would violate a confidentiality agreement." I assured her that my documentation consisted only of my own performance metrics, emails that had been sent to me personally, and publicly available information about campaign results. With legal considerations addressed, I turned my attention to the next phase, securing a new position. I reached out to several industry contacts, including Taylor, to discreetly inquire about opportunities. By the end of that day, I had scheduled 4 interviews for the following week. That evening, I transformed my living room into a strategic planning center. I hung a whiteboard on the wall where I mapped out a timeline for my exit. I created a checklist of tasks, secure new employment, prepare resignation documents, organize handover notes for my team, and most importantly, finalize what I now thought of as the attachment. For the next week, I went to work as usual, performing my duties with the same dedication as always. To anyone observing, I appeared to have moved past the performance review, accepting my fate with quiet resignation. In reality, I was meticulously documenting every aspect of my current projects, creating detailed guides that would be useful to whoever took over my responsibilities, and finalizing my strategy for departure. The performance improvement plan arrived in my inbox as Rebecca had promised. It outlined vague concerns about my adaptability and alignment with company vision, without any specific performance issues. The document required my signature acknowledging receipt. I signed it without comment and returned it to HR, knowing it would soon be irrelevant. By Friday of that week, I had received job offers from 2 companies, including Horizon Digital, Taylor's employer. Their offer included a 30% salary increase, more comprehensive benefits, and most importantly, a culture that emphasized recognizing and rewarding employee contributions. As I accepted Horizon's offer and set a start date for 3 weeks later, a sense of calm settled over me. The path forward was clear now. I would leave TechVision on my own terms, with my dignity intact and a better position secured. All that remained was to craft the perfect resignation and the document that would accompany it. That weekend, I dedicated myself to finalizing the attachment, the document that would show TechVision exactly what they were losing when they called me easily replaceable. It would be professional, factual, and devastating in its clarity. As I worked, I felt a growing sense of empowerment, replacing the hurt and betrayal of the performance review. They thought I was easily replaceable. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. With a new position secured at Horizon Digital, I turned my full attention to crafting the perfect resignation package. This would be more than a simple, "I quit" letter. It would be a comprehensive document that would force TechVision to recognize the true value of what they were losing. I began with the resignation letter itself, keeping it professional and concise. No accusations, no emotional language, just a straightforward statement of my intention to leave the company. I wrote and rewrote it several times, refining the language until it struck exactly the right tone, dignified, professional, and final. Dear Mr. Gregory and Miss Rebecca, please accept this letter as formal notification that I am resigning from my position as Senior Marketing Specialist at TechVision Industries. Per my employment contract, I am providing 2 weeks' notice, with my final day being Friday, October 15th. I appreciate the opportunities for professional development that have been provided to me during the past 5 years. I have attached a detailed document outlining my contributions to the company and a comprehensive handover guide for my current projects. I will do everything possible to ensure a smooth transition during my notice period. Please let me know how I can be of assistance in this process. Sincerely, Alicia Bennett. The letter was deliberately brief. The real impact would come from the attachment. I was preparing a detailed dossier that would make it impossible for them to dismiss my value to the company. I structured the attachment in several sections, each designed to highlight a different aspect of my contributions. The first section was a financial analysis of the direct revenue impact of my marketing campaigns. I created detailed charts showing the ROI of each campaign I had led over the past 3 years, with conservative estimates of the revenue directly attributable to my work. The total came to just over $4 million, nearly 100 times my annual salary. Next came a section on client relationships. I included emails and testimonials from clients specifically praising my work and service. The next-gen contract renewal featured prominently, with a breakdown of how my intervention had saved a $500,000 annual contract that was on the verge of being terminated. The third section focused on intellectual property and innovations I had brought to the company. This included the blog revamp strategy that had tripled traffic, the social media approach that had gone viral within our industry, and several other marketing methodologies I had developed or significantly improved. Following this was a compilation of internal recognition I had received over the years, emails from executives praising my work, nominations for company awards, and performance statistics, showing how my team consistently outperformed other departments. The fifth section was perhaps the most impactful, a detailed breakdown of the institutional knowledge I would be taking with me. This included client preferences and communication styles, historical context for ongoing projects, and relationships with industry partners that I had cultivated personally. The final section was a market analysis of my position, including salary benchmarks for someone with my skills and experience. This made it clear that not only had TechVision been underpaying me significantly, but that replacing me would likely cost them substantially more than retaining me would have. Throughout the document, I was careful to maintain a professional, factual tone. There were no accusations, no emotional appeals, just data, evidence, and objective analysis. The facts would speak for themselves, and they would speak volumes. As I worked on the document, I consulted discreetly with Charlotte, my lawyer friend, to ensure that nothing in my approach could be construed as violating confidentiality agreements or threatening legal action. She reviewed the final draft and confirmed that it was entirely appropriate, a factual account of my contributions that I had every right to present. "This is masterful," Charlotte said after reading it. "Completely professional, yet it makes your value abundantly clear. They are going to regret that performance review." With the resignation letter and attachment complete, I turned my attention to preparing for the practical aspects of my departure. I created detailed handover documents for each of my ongoing projects with step-by-step instructions that anyone could follow. I organized all my digital files, adding clear labels and explanatory notes. I even prepared a frequently asked questions document addressing common questions that might arise after my departure. Meanwhile, I was also preparing for my new position at Horizon. I had several calls with their HR department to complete paperwork and with their marketing director to discuss my role and initial projects. I set up a home office space where I could work remotely during my first few weeks, as Horizon's headquarters was in another part of the city, and I would need time to adjust my commute. The weekend before I planned to submit my resignation, I met with Taylor for brunch. She had been my sounding board throughout this process, and I wanted her perspective on my final approach. "Are you nervous?" she asked, as we settled into a corner table at our favorite cafe. "Strangely, no," I replied. "A month ago, I was devastated by their treatment. Now I just feel ready to move on my terms." "They are going to freak out when they read that attachment," Taylor said with a satisfied smile. "Rebecca especially. I wish I could be a fly on the wall for that." "It is not about revenge," I clarified, though part of me did relish the thought of Rebecca's reaction. "It is about setting the record straight before I leave, making sure there is no question about my value and contributions." "Well, mission accomplished on that front, and I cannot wait to have you at Horizon. The team is excited to meet you." As we parted ways after brunch, Taylor gave me a fierce hug. "Go get them, Tiger. You have got this." The day before my planned resignation, I made final preparations. I backed up personal files from my work computer and removed personal items from my desk one or two at a time so as not to raise suspicion. I confirmed details with Horizon about my start date and first assignments. I printed 2 copies of my resignation letter, an attachment, one for HR and one for Gregory. That evening, I laid out my outfit for the next day, a confident, professional ensemble that made me feel powerful. I rehearsed what I would say when handing in my resignation, practicing in front of the mirror, until my delivery was calm and assured. I went to bed early expecting to toss and turn with anticipation, but instead fell into a deep, peaceful sleep, the sleep of someone who knows exactly what they are doing and why they are doing it. Morning arrived with a sense of clarity and purpose I had not felt in months. As I dressed and prepared for what would be one of my final days at TechVision, I felt none of the anxiety or doubt that had plagued me since the performance review. Instead, I felt a quiet confidence, a certainty that I was taking the right step for my career and my self-respect. I placed the resignation letters and attachments in a sleek portfolio, tucked it into my bag, and headed to the office. Today was the day TechVision would learn exactly what easily replaceable looked like. I arrived at the office earlier than usual that morning, wanting a few moments of quiet to center myself before the day began. The security guard nodded as I badged in, completely unaware that this would be one of my last times entering the building as an employee. At my desk, I booted up my computer and reviewed my calendar. I had deliberately kept my schedule light for the day, with only a few non-critical meetings. I wanted to ensure I had flexibility for what would come after submitting my resignation. As colleagues began to filter in, I greeted them with my usual smile, exchanging pleasant morning conversation. Madison stopped by my desk with a coffee, one of our small daily rituals. "You seem different today," she observed, studying my face, more relaxed somehow. I smiled, just had a good night's sleep. By 9:30, both Gregory and Rebecca had arrived. I watched through the glass walls of their offices as they settled in, checking emails and preparing for their day, completely unaware of the disruption I was about to cause. At precisely 10 o'clock, I sent an email requesting an immediate meeting with both of them. "Need to discuss an urgent matter. Available now if possible," was all I wrote. Then I gathered my portfolio and waited. Gregory responded first. "Can it wait until this afternoon? In calls all morning." "Unfortunately, no," I replied. "This requires immediate attention. It will only take 15 minutes. 5 minutes later, Rebecca's assistant called to say they could see me at 10:30 in the small conference room. I thanked her and continued with my morning tasks, responding to emails with unusual efficiency, knowing they would likely be among my last communications as a TechVision employee. At 10:28, I picked up my portfolio, took a deep breath, and walked to the conference room. Gregory and Rebecca were already there, both looking slightly annoyed at the interruption to their schedules. "This better be important," Alicia Rebecca said, as I closed the door behind me. "We both have packed calendars today." "It is important," I replied calmly, taking a seat across from them, "and it will not take much of your time." I opened my portfolio and removed 2 sealed envelopes, sliding one toward each of them. "This is my formal resignation from TechVision Industries effective 2 weeks from today." The change in their expressions was immediate. Gregory's mouth actually fell open slightly while Rebecca's eyebrows shot up in surprise before quickly rearranging her features into a neutral expression. "Resignation," Gregory repeated, as if unfamiliar with the concept. "But what about the performance improvement plan? We were going to work together on addressing those concerns." "I have found an opportunity that better aligns with my career goals and professional values," I said, using the corporate speak they were so fond of. "My decision is final." Rebecca opened her envelope and skimmed the brief resignation letter. "I see," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "While this is unexpected, we certainly wish you the best in your future endeavors." The standard HR response delivered with practiced ease. "You will find a detailed attachment to my resignation letter," I continued. "It provides a comprehensive overview of my contributions to TechVision over the past 5 years, along with handover documentation for all my current projects." Gregory was still staring at his unopened envelope. "Is this because of the performance review?" he asked, having the decency to look at least somewhat uncomfortable. "This is about recognizing my value and finding an environment where that value is appreciated," I replied evenly. As I mentioned, the attachment details my contributions to this company, including the financial impact of my work-client relationships I have cultivated and intellectual property I have developed. Rebecca's eyes narrowed slightly. "We will review this information, of course. In the meantime, I will need you to meet with HR to discuss the handover process and return of company property." Of course, I agreed. "I am happy to ensure a smooth transition. I have already prepared comprehensive handover documents for all my projects and team responsibilities." "Where are you going?" Gregory asked, finally opening his envelope. "I am not at liberty to discuss that at this time," I replied, knowing that revealing my new position at a competitor would likely result in being immediately escorted from the building, rather than being allowed to work my notice period. "Well," Rebecca said briskly, clearly ready to end the meeting, "we appreciate your professionalism in providing notice. We will communicate your departure to the team later today." "I would prefer to tell my direct reports personally," I said. "They deserve to hear it from me first." Rebecca looked like she might object, but then nodded curtly. "Very well. Just ensure it is done by noon, so we can make the wider announcement." "Thank you," I said, standing to indicate the meeting was over. "I suggest you review the attachment carefully. I believe you will find it informative." As I walked out of the conference room, I felt a strange mixture of emotions: relief, pride, vindication, and a touch of sadness for the company that TechVision had once been. But mostly I felt free, the burden of underappreciation finally lifted from my shoulders. Back at my desk, I immediately called a quick meeting with my team of 5 marketing specialists. We gathered in a small huddle area away from the main office space, and I shared my news with them directly and honestly. "I wanted you all to hear this from me first," I began. "I have submitted my resignation today, with my last day being October 15th. Their reactions ranged from shock to dismay. Madison actually gasped, "No way, you cannot leave us." "I have accepted a position that offers better alignment with my professional goals," I explained, careful not to mention Horizon by name. "This was not an easy decision, but it is the right one for me at this time." "Is it because of how they have been treating you?" Madison asked bluntly. We have all seen it. I chose my words carefully, aware that anything too negative could be used against me. Let us just say that I believe my contributions can be better utilized elsewhere. But I want you all to know that I have prepared detailed transition documents for every project, and I will spend these next 2 weeks ensuring you have everything you need to continue successfully. After answering their questions as best I could, I returned to my desk to find an email from HR requesting a meeting at 1 o'clock to discuss transition procedures. The company announcement about my departure hit inboxes at 12:15. A terse 3-sentence statement: Alicia Bennett has resigned from her position as Senior Marketing Specialist to pursue other opportunities. Her last day will be October 15th. Please join us in wishing her success in her future endeavors. Throughout the afternoon, colleagues stopped by my desk or sent messages expressing surprise and good wishes. Some asked outright what had happened, while others simply wanted to know where I was going next. To all, I gave the same professional response about new opportunities and career growth, never letting on about the true catalyst for my departure. Interestingly, neither Gregory nor Rebecca approached me for the remainder of the day. Through the glass walls of their offices, I occasionally caught them in what appeared to be intense discussions, Gregory gesticulating, while Rebecca maintained her typically stoic expression. I wondered if they had reviewed the attachment yet, or if it was still sitting unopened on their desks. By 5 o'clock, most of the initial drama had subsided. I stayed late organizing my files and preparing for my remaining days at the company. As I worked, a sense of calm purpose replaced the adrenaline rush of the morning. I had done it. I had taken control of my professional narrative and set boundaries on how I would allow myself to be treated. Just as I was preparing to leave around 6:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Madison Emergency Team Meeting called for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Something big is happening. I smiled to myself as I packed up my things. The attachment was being read. The impact was beginning, and this was only day 1. The next morning, I arrived precisely on time for the emergency team meeting. Gregory was there looking haggard as if he had not slept well, along with the vice president of marketing, a position 2 levels above Gregory, who rarely attended team meetings. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," the VP began. "As you know, Alicia has submitted her resignation. What you do not know is that after reviewing her contributions and current projects, we have realized we need to implement a comprehensive transition plan to ensure continuity." I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I felt a surge of satisfaction. They had read the attachment, or at least part of it, and were beginning to understand what they were losing. To that end, the VP continued, "We will be redistributing Alicia's responsibilities among several team members, with additional support from other departments. Gregory will coordinate this effort, with Alicia's input, on the most efficient allocation of tasks." The meeting continued with discussion of specific projects and transition timelines. Throughout, I offered helpful suggestions and insights, maintaining absolute professionalism despite the sweet taste of vindication. As the meeting concluded, the VP asked me to stay behind for a moment. Once we were alone, he said, "That was quite a document you attached to your resignation." I nodded. "Just a factual account of my contributions." "Well, it has certainly made an impression upstairs," he said, studying me with new respect. "There is talk of conducting a review of our performance evaluation processes." "That sounds like a positive development," I replied neutrally. He hesitated, then added, "For what it is worth, not everyone shares the assessment you received in your review. Some of us have always recognized your value to this organization." "Thank you," I said simply. "I appreciate that." The remaining days of my notice period brought a series of increasingly desperate attempts to extract as much of my knowledge as possible before I left. Suddenly, I was included in executive meetings I had previously been excluded from. Rebecca avoided me entirely, while Gregory made awkward attempts at reconciliation, even hinting that a counteroffer might be possible if I was interested. "I appreciate the consideration," I told him when he finally made the offer explicit, "but my decision is final. I have signed a contract with my new employer and am committed to that path." By my final day, the reality of my departure had fully sunk in. An exit interview had been scheduled with a senior HR representative from the parent company, not Rebecca, interestingly enough. The interview was surprisingly candid, with the representative asking detailed questions about my reasons for leaving and taking copious notes when I mentioned the easily replaceable comment and systematic undermining of my work. As I packed the last of my personal items into a cardboard box, Madison and the rest of my team appeared with a cake and farewell cards. Several of them had tears in their eyes. "We made this for you," Madison said, handing me a scrapbook filled with photos, notes, and mementos from our time working together. "So you will not forget us when you are being successful somewhere else." The gesture nearly broke my composure. "I could never forget any of you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. As per company policy for departing employees, a security guard arrived to escort me from the building. What was meant to be a humiliating protocol actually felt like an honor guard as I walked through the marketing department one last time, colleagues standing to applaud as I passed. At the main entrance, I turned for one final look at the place that had been my professional home for 5 years. Through the glass walls of the executive suite, I caught a glimpse of Rebecca watching my departure, her expression unreadable. I gave her a small professional nod, then turned and walked through the doors into the bright autumn sunshine and my new future. As I placed my box of belongings in my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Madison Gregory, "Just called an all-hands meeting for tomorrow morning. Word is, there are going to be significant changes in the department." I smiled as I started the engine. The attachment had done its work. I was easily replaceable. They were about to discover just how wrong they had been. The first indication that my resignation had created waves came just 3 days after my departure from TechVision. My phone rang with an unknown number, and when I answered, I was surprised to hear Marcus, the CEO, on the line. "Alicia, I hope I am not disturbing you," he began, his usually confident voice sounding uncharacteristically hesitant. "I wanted to reach out personally after reviewing the documentation you provided with your resignation." I sat down at my home office desk, taking a moment to collect my thoughts. "Hello, Marcus. No disturbance at all. What can I do for you?" To be frank, I was unaware of the situation that led to your departure. Your document was quite eye-opening. I wondered if you might consider coming in for a conversation about potentially returning to TechVision. We could discuss a significant title upgrade and compensation adjustment. "I appreciate the offer," I replied calmly, "but I have already begun a new position that I am very excited about. My decision to leave was not made lightly or solely based on compensation." "I understand," Marcus said, sounding disappointed, but not surprised. "In that case, I want to express my personal regret for how things were handled. The assessment made during your review does not reflect the company's true valuation of your contributions." We spoke for a few more minutes, with Marcus asking if I would be willing to provide additional feedback on the company culture and management practices. I agreed to send him some thoughts via email, maintaining a professional tone throughout the conversation. After hanging up, I sat back in my chair, processing what had just happened. The CEO himself had called to try to get me back, which confirmed that my attachment had made it all the way to the top of the organization and had the impact I had hoped for. Later that week, Madison texted me, "You would not believe what is happening here. Rebecca is on leave indefinitely. Gregory is scrambling to cover all your projects and failing miserably. 3 clients have already asked specifically for you." I wished them well, but felt a sense of vindication. The company was experiencing firsthand the consequences of undervaluing an employee they had deemed easily replaceable. My new position at Horizon Digital started brilliantly. From day one, I was included in strategic discussions. My ideas were not just heard, but implemented, and my experience was treated as a valuable asset rather than a threat. Taylor had been right. The culture was fundamentally different, focused on recognizing and nurturing talent rather than treating employees as disposable resources. 2 weeks into my new role, I received an unexpected email from NextGen Solutions, the client whose contract I had saved at TechVision. Their chief marketing officer wrote, "We have been informed that you are no longer with TechVision. Our experience working with you was always exceptional, and we valued your insights and responsiveness. If your new position allows, we would be interested in exploring potential collaboration opportunities." After consulting with my new manager, who was thrilled at the prospect, I arranged a meeting with Next General. Within a month, they had transferred a significant portion of their business to Horizon, specifically requesting that I oversee their account. As weeks passed, the ripple effects of my departure from TechVision continued to spread. According to Madison, who remained my inside source, my detailed attachment had prompted a comprehensive review of management practices throughout the company. Gregory was placed on a performance improvement plan, a poetic irony that did not escape me. 3 other long-term employees who had been similarly undervalued received promotions and significant raises in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to prevent further departures. Most satisfying of all, Rebecca did not return from her leave. Madison reported that her position was filled by a new HR director with a background in employee development and retention rather than cost-cutting. Approximately 2 months after my departure, I received LinkedIn connection requests from 4 of my former TechVision colleagues, all seeking advice on updating their resumes. "The environment has improved somewhat," one wrote in a private message, "but your exit showed us all that we should not settle for being undervalued." At Horizon, I flourished in ways I had not thought possible. My ideas were implemented without being appropriated by others. My contributions were publicly acknowledged and rewarded. Within 6 months, I received a promotion to Director of Digital Marketing, leading a team of 12 specialists, all of whom I made sure felt valued and heard. The healing process from my experience at TechVision took time. For weeks after leaving, I would wake up with a tight feeling in my chest, replaying Rebecca's dismissive laugh and the words "easily replaceable" in my mind. But gradually, as I received recognition and respect in my new position, those memories lost their sting. 1 year after my departure from TechVision, I was invited to speak at a marketing conference about digital strategy. As I walked onto the stage, I spotted a familiar face in the audience, Gregory looking somewhat diminished in the back row. After my presentation, he approached me awkwardly. "Great presentation," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "You always did have innovative ideas." "Thank you, Gregory," I replied politely. "How are things at TechVision?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Different. Very different. Your departure triggered quite the shakeup." After a pause, he added, "I should have stood up for you during that review. I regret that I did not." It was the closest thing to an apology I would get, and I accepted it with grace. We all have moments where we wish we had acted differently. The important thing is to learn from them. As I reflect now on that chapter of my professional life, I realize how much it taught me about my own worth and the importance of standing up for myself. The experience shaped my approach to leadership in my current role, where I make it a priority to ensure every team member knows they are valued and their contributions recognized. I learned the crucial importance of documentation, keeping track of accomplishments, saving emails of praise, and quantifying the impact of my work. This practice, which began as a defensive measure, has become a professional habit that serves me well in performance reviews and salary negotiations. Most importantly, I discovered that self-worth cannot and should not be determined by others' assessments, particularly those made by people with their own agendas. True value comes from knowing what you bring to the table and being willing to walk away from situations where that value is not recognized. For anyone facing similar circumstances, my advice is this: document everything. Know your worth, and remember that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply removing yourself from an environment that fails to appreciate you. No one is easily replaceable if they have been making meaningful contributions, and anyone who suggests otherwise is revealing more about their own shortcomings than yours. The attachment to my resignation letter was not an act of revenge, but a statement of truth. In the end, the truth spoke for itself louder and more effectively than any emotional outburst could have. And the truth was simple. I was never easily replaceable. No dedicated, skilled professional ever island. Have you ever been undervalued at work or told you were replaceable? How did you respond? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself in professional settings. Remember, knowing your worth is the first step to being truly valued. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it inspires you to recognize and assert your own irreplaceable value.